Hey everybody, welcome back to the FlippingJunkie podcast. Got a real short one for you today. This is just about a topic that we covered in one of our meetings at the office. With LeadPropeller, we have LeadPropeller Fuel that manages Facebook advertising and Google Ads, pay-per-click advertising, and SEO for customers around the country and even in other countries. I think we have some Canadian and international type customers in the service to generate these leads for people busy running, real estate investors busy running their business and want to have these services professionally managed by us. And so we do that, and we have a meeting every 2 weeks to look at the numbers and see how well everything's doing across accounts, and kind of accountability kind of thing, and idea sessions to see about improving stuff. And it's come up a couple times where we've had some customers cancel a service for a strange reason, and that's what I want to talk about today. That strange reason is, what I'm told, is that they said that they've got too many leads. And I'm sure some of that is probably maybe where somebody has other reasons outside of that they maybe personal or something that they're not wanting to mention, and so they say something like that. But it does turn out that a lot of those actual accounts were getting a lot of leads. But why were they wanting to stop the service? Because there was too many leads. This to me was kind of crazy. So I thought about it, and I was trying to figure out, why would that ever be? I don't imagine a time where I would feel like I had too many leads to where I'd want to stop those leads from coming in, right? Because there's a lot of things that we can do. I mean, you can bird dog those leads off to other investors, and if they put that under contract, they can give you, a kind of a finder's fee kind of thing for that lead, because they got that deal. Obviously, quickly, wholesaling or signing contracts, doing that kind of stuff. The more leads, the better, in my opinion. And if you have trouble keeping up with the phone calls or the appointments or any of that kind of thing, maybe it's time to look inside the business, right? Not just inside how many of these deals can you do by yourself, or find out where that problem is, because those leads could represent some very profitable deals, right? And if we're not looking at the different parts of our business that are making to where we can do that efficiently and handle those things to where if we got more, we would know that we were going to do this much better. With twice as many leads, you should be getting twice as much profit, right? And tweaking your business to be able to handle that. And so, if the part is that part where you're taking the phone calls, you're still answering all those calls that come in, can be very time consuming. And if you're busy looking at a house, you don't really want to interrupt the seller talking to you walking around the house by picking up another call for somebody else. Or you just are working a job or something, you can't take those calls. It's time to figure out a way to still take all those calls, because they got to be live, right? If you're doing marketing, you need to be answering your phone. If you drive around your town and look at bandit signs or find other marketing from other house flippers and real estate investors in your town, and you call them, I guarantee you the majority of them will not pick up the phone. All right, leave a message. Act like you might have a deal to sell or something, and see if they call you back. I'm sure a lot of those won't even bother to call you back. And if they do, a lot of times it's the next day or even 2 days later. It's just kind of crazy. And so the key here is answering the phone, right? If you're paying for marketing, you've got to be answering the phone. If you can't, you need to find another way to do it. Now, there's services like Keener or Pat Live that are paid services that can be live answering these phone calls for you, asking questions you want asked, and then send you the information. Now, we use Keener, and Melissa tells me it seems to be working out just fine. They handle those calls pretty well. If we're not able to handle them, we have a service that will, so that they always get answered live. Now, if that's not going to work for you, do you have a relative or somebody else that doesn't work a job where they can't take those phone calls? It's not that hard to train somebody to take friendly phone calls and take the time to really find out why somebody's selling their house. It's not just a matter of getting this information. You have to be able to build that rapport and talk to them about what the real issue is, why they're selling, and finding out a little bit more and building that rapport. Because if they're calling multiple people, your phone call, the one that they made to you, should stand out from the other competitors in your market. To where that person said, I really liked them. And a lot of times it's just because you took the time to listen. It wasn't just grilling them for those answers about the house and all that kind of stuff. You took the time to find out more about them and their situation, like you cared, okay? And that's the key here. And so if you are taking your calls but you're rushed, that's not good either, right? So be able to make it to where whoever's answering those calls has the time, knows how to just be a friendly person, ask those questions in a way that it's friendly and conversational, so they don't feel like you're in a rush to get off of the phone with them. Okay, so that's one part, right? If you're getting a ton of leads and you can't take those calls, take them properly, instead of stopping the leads, find a way to be able to handle those leads coming in. And if you don't have systems in your business, software systems or just general systems, maybe it's time to do that as well. If you're putting all this in notepads and you just can't keep up with that number of calls or returning all those kind of calls, maybe it's time to get a software system. Obviously right now, if you've been following us any length of time, we've been working on FlippPilot. It's currently in beta, making a lot of improvements to it. But that'll let you know all the calls that came in, the calls that were missed, all that kind of stuff, be able to follow up with those. And it just keeps track of everything, right? So even if you're not using FlippPilot, use something else. Have something that allows you to know what happened with every single call that came in, what the status of it is, if you're following up on it to try to reach back out to them if you did miss the call. It's very important to have those. Those missed calls cannot be forgotten. You know, each one of those calls, if you looked at every single call that came into your business as a motivated seller lead, as the potential of being a $50,000 deal, I think you'd make it work to where you answered them and made sure that you followed up and got a hold of them, find out the situation, set an appointment. You would do all those things if you looked at every one of those calls that way. And that's the way you need to look at it. If you're missing a call, it should cross your mind, hey, that's a $50,000 deal right there I just missed. And then you're going to return that call right away and make sure that something's in place. It's a very big part of this business. If you miss one, there's been times where I've missed deals because of situations like that, and you kick yourself forever, but then you work on making sure that you don't do that again. You learn from that mistake. So hopefully you can learn from others' mistakes and take care of this instead of making that same mistake. Maybe you don't even know you're making it in some of these cases. All right, so I'm just winging this too. I don't have notes, so hopefully I don't forget something. But the phone calls, making sure that you're handling those properly, having systems in place to follow up and things like that. And then also setting appointments, right? If you are to the point where you're able to handle those leads coming in, you can take those calls, take them well, but then it's a matter of just making the appointments where you're like, I'm booked up for 4 or 5 days. I can't even see the house until this date. It's time to find another person to help you with acquisitions, to help you going to look at these properties. And I know this is not simple. This is definitely one of those things that took me years to let go of. My friend Justin Williams was telling me forever, it's like, Danny, you got to stop going to these appointments. You know, you think that you're the best at doing it for your business, and that's not really the truth of it, because maybe you're really good at it, but you're also having to do all these other things. You have all these other responsibilities, all these other hats to wear. And so when you're trying to do all of these things, you're not going to be very good at any of them, right? Because you're trying to do all of this stuff. You'll act irritated taking the phone calls. You'll be showing up to the appointment, rushing through it, making an offer quickly, not trying to talk with the seller, find out the situation or build rapport, and you're off to the next appointment. And, setting appointments for 2 days later because you want to go and do something the next day instead of looking at a house. Things like that are really going to affect your business, and finding someone that's dedicated to it, that can take John Martinez training or something like that and really get into their position and be the best at that position is going to be better than you. I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear and accept. It was for me, like I said, but it's one of those facts of life. If you want to grow this business and make it to where you have the true freedom to be able to do the things you want to do and focus on the high level 30,000 foot view of your business, as any FlippPilot should, that's what you got to start looking at. You got to let go of these beliefs that it's hard to have a team and it's going to be a lot more work and responsibility to have somebody on your team. You got to let go of it. And starting with that lead intake, starting with the people answering the phones and doing it properly is usually the easiest, because that can be something done from somebody at their house, or, like I said, a relative or something that can be taking those calls and not be in an office somewhere with you or whatever. So we talked about taking the calls properly, doing follow-up, making sure you're getting in touch with all the people that call you into a system so that you can track everything, know that you're handling every single one of them, not dropping those $50,000 potential deals through your fingers, and then making sure that you have the ability to schedule these appointments right away, right? Because the home run deals will go quick. You can set an appointment for a seller tomorrow, and they could call your competitor that says, I'll be there in 2 hours. If they were ready to sell, they are ready to sell, and that competitor, even if they offer less than what you would have, will likely get that deal if those were truly motivated, ready to go sellers. And that could be that $50,000 deal that you lost, right? The seller could then call you and say, I've already accepted this offer from this other person. And I don't know how many times this has happened to me where I'd say, well, you don't want to wait and see what I can likely offer more. You don't want to wait and see. No, I'm going to go ahead and go with them. It's like, oh man, that you don't want to be doing. You got to schedule these appointments right away. Okay, so making sure that that piece is there, that you got the manpower, you got the ability to be able to set these appointments as soon as possible, and do that so you don't have the deal slip through the cracks there. Okay, and so I think if you have those pieces in place, the number of leads should not matter as much. You should be able to handle tons of leads coming in, growing your business, making more profit, having more freedom for yourself, and that's really the key here, right? That's really the goal of all of this. And we had a really good podcast episode, this last one with Don Costa, about knowing your numbers. That's a big part of this. Listen to that episode if you did not yet. Go back and listen to that once right before this one. I think you'll get a lot out of that. And I just want to say, everybody, thank you for listening to the podcast. It really means a lot to us when you leave a rating and review on iTunes for the podcast. Really helps us out. And for participating in the Flipping Junkie Facebook group. It's growing by leaps and bounds. Thank you so much for everybody that's taking part in that. And if you're not a part of that, go over to Facebook and look for Flipping Junkie Group and join up with all the other listeners and different fans and people working on creating freedom for themselves and their families, and working on their business and all that kind of good stuff. Head over there to Facebook. We'd love to see you in the group. And, you don't have to say anything. You can just go in and post and maybe introduce yourself or something. But a lot of great stuff going on in there, so hope you do that. Also, be on the lookout for upcoming Flip Pilot releases. We'll be doing that in a number of months. Just a couple months, we're getting some stuff out there and really liking the way the direction is going. We've got so much great feedback from beta users that we're using to improve the flow of the system and just the general ease and usability of it. So super excited about that. Super cool new stuff that we've come up with that's really going to simplify everything and make it the ultimate system for real estate investors. Flip Pilot. You can check out some of the existing videos on flippilot.com. But thanks again for everything, watching and listening on the YouTube channel and on iTunes and all that kind of good stuff. And hope you guys have a great week. Talk to you next time.